Okay. So, already some things to note is walking out of base level 1, generally you don't want to level something. Say you want to go for the level 1 fight. Shadow Fist is 10-hand Shadow Fist. This is a really good fight initiator onto a single target. And it might be worth it, where it hurts your early clear, but with the speed to blue start, generally the cooldown of this ability doesn't matter as much. It is super long. But you can sort of get away with it a little bit more. You guys kind of grouped, but you didn't really want to take the fight. The other team, they grouped kind of back by the backside of speed, but they ended up backing, and they didn't really want to fight over here. So just a normal start. Pretty standard build coming out. Fumbler is way behind. The fact that he was standing there definitely hurt him getting the lane. And then right here, I would say as a jungler, you're generally going to want to do your full combo. So auto one, auto one is kind of what you're trying to do. You're trying to get your longest and heaviest hit, and then use your thing. That's ability canceling, and it's going to be at the most DPS, especially early on these camps, because your clear was a little bit slow. And then there's that gank right there, and then unfortunate that those abilities missed. Kind of confusing from Flipsy. Like, this is a pretty bad thing to just like solo invade this, especially because you're pretty good about rotating to stuff like this. But you decided to go into Agni, which isn't the worst thing, but it was just like an awkward fight all around. But it turned out well because your duo rotated and theirs didn't. But again, like already like kind of a couple mistakes, kind of farming out early game, some mechanical differences. I think you split those 1 for 1. You're getting these. So as of right now, you're slightly ahead of Flipsy. So it'll be interesting to see what you do with it. Right now, they're kind of on rights. Like right now, you should be walking to rights with your jungler. Like the wave isn't pushed up yet, and you split those 1 for 1 as well. But as a jungler, you should be trying to clear as much of the farm on the map as possible. And right there, you walked into mid when there wasn't anything to be farmed in mid, and you didn't join your mid laner, who was actually on the correct play, which was to get right camps. But doing back camps, and then that puts you on the timer for speed, which is good. Generally, as a jungler, you want to be on speed timer really tightly. Also, just be aware that if you hit your main auto attacks on the center minion and let your abilities do the damage on the side creeps, generally they're going to get cleared. So that was actually a little bit slow clear. Also of note is that Flips actually went to right sides and farmed up backs here while you went to blue. So right here, there's kind of options of go to mid, left is coming up, purple has been on the map for a long time, and you still haven't farmed those like back left camps. So there's a lot of farm to be going on. You go to mid, you actually looked for the damage, which is good. But right there, you probably could have gotten another auto win. But not really that big of a deal, because you ultimately did get the kill. Good to farm up this. But the thing is right here actually, is we should know from the death and duo that Flipsy was in left lane. Red was actually up right there, and you didn't even like face check it or have any intuition that it was just going to be up right there. Because if you early game, if you look at your own timers, it's generally going to reflect the enemy's timers as well. So the fact that your red buff was up meant that the enemy's red buff was probably also up. So you need to be a little bit more aware of that. You probably could have turned that into a red invade, but instead they invaded on our purple, and now we're down 1 buff, where they got red and purple, but we only got red and didn't get purple. Also, good job farming backs. I probably would have walked to backs here instead of walking to mid. But it doesn't really matter that much. That's just a kind of a difference in decision making. But as you can see, like, their junglers on right camps, and you kind of were just holding wave for mid. But yeah, right now you should be going to speed to backs is probably what I'd do. I think right here, if I remember correctly, you did backs to speed. I think backs on a really low timer, but you want to keep speed on, like, as soon as it spawns, it should be going on the ground. Because the thing is not even from the perspective of it's an important buff that you want on the ground. The movement speed is very important to your farming rotations, and the more time you have with it, which if you get it as it spawns, is 0 downtime for speed, or very minimal downtime, you're actually farming that faster. So if you started at speed and went to backs and then went to blue, you actually would have been there quicker than what you just did, because you actually didn't have speed going from backs to speed. So right here, I like this back timing. You gotta pick up some items. So you get full warrior tabby, and you buy a sentry, and you either had that pot left over or you bought it, and that's fine. You're either backing for a sentry or you're backing for 2 normal wards, but that's pretty much just a fine play. Clearing these backs and going to the left side is good, and being on timer for this red is very important. They're actually contesting it here, so right here you're allowed to do this in front of them, but save your abilities. Like, that was a little bit closer than it had to be. Also be careful, because the range of your 3 is very short. So right there, this was all the good play, but you were just a little bit off mechanically. So we're gonna go back and watch that, because that was definitely a big exchange. So going back to this point, when you're on the red, you want to save your ability to last hit it. It was very close, and it was lucky that it was 1 auto off, or maybe calculated, whatever it may be. But you see, he came in there, almost hit it. Just care, because again, you threw the 3 there, and it's a very short range. You have to be very considerate of that. Right here, you get bomb stun, and then you 2 through the flame wave, but step in that. So right there, you see a couple of mistakes in terms of mechanics, where you didn't 2 the bomb stun. I actually went pretty far back. You didn't 2 the bomb stun. You instead 2 the flame wave, which isn't that bad. Flame waves is what's going to tend to be maxed, but the idea is that you don't want to be crowd controlled, really. You also decided to fight. So right here, the thing about it is Ravana's a good character where he's the non-committal character. As soon as you miss the 3, though, this is a harder fight. So right here, I'm pretty sure you're able to 2 through that bomb stun if you're paying attention. That's just barely off the mark, but again, like, you need to be on his back. You actually, like, backstepped, and that kind of messed up your auto and you weren't able to hit it. But overall, like, that was more or less the right play. But the fact is that fighting with your 3 down, because you missed it onto the Jing Chen, is definitely not the best idea. You generally want to be able to hit all of your abilities. The fact that you're fighting without part of your kit is generally going to hurt in any trade. And I feel like you probably wanted to 2 the bomb stun, because it means you're controlled for a lesser time. The bomb stun itself hurt you pretty bad. And again, if you had the 3 when you're chasing down that Agni, that fight definitely goes differently. But so right here, you walk out of base, you go to back camps, and then you're going to speed. Again, I tend to be on the side of going to speed first for the reasons mentioned before, but not the end of the world. You're still on your buff respawn timings. Just also be aware that the jungle is now off cycle with you. He's been letting his solo lane do blue buff for pretty much the entire time, and he's been going and doing other things. In general, after a certain point, like after about this spawning, most jungles, they will stop coming to blue. Either their solo laner is even enough where they can grab their own blue buff, or you're looking for a blue invade, which it actually was up at the time, so you could have looked for it. Instead, you decide to come over here, and you actually do pick up the kill after our mid laner died in the mid lane, and you're able to get it onto the Agni. So kind of overall good play, but definitely keep in mind that the fact that Flipsy is out and making plays in mid means that his rotation on, like, you are on timer relatively for speed, which means that he's also on timer for speed. And the fact that he's in mid and fighting in mid means that he's probably not going to blue. And that can give you some information about his rotations and what camps are up. Also keep in mind that as a jungler, you can exhibit pressure, but it's not your responsibility to always like save your laners. Like if your mid laner isn't aware that you're not in the area and isn't like under tower, then it's not really like on you to like babysit him. If you can get backs and a blue for your team, like you're gaining farm from your team that's like kind of this neutral farm. I don't think you like always need to be sitting in mid. I think you need to be able to like trust in your team to be able to do that. And then right here, you get a lot of damage onto Jingchen, but unfortunately don't manage to grab the kill. But it's like an overall good rotation. Except for right here, lane farm, it's usually splitting it 3 ways isn't always the best, and the thing is left camps were up. If nothing else was up, that's probably the play. But I do think you could have gotten left camps with your mid laner. It ended up not mattering too much. They actually soloed it, so not too bad for team farm. And I do realize you have to get back for these spawns, which you were a little bit late on. That kind of comes with that. That's like the biggest thing and the hardest thing about rotating duo, is you have to do it opposite the cycle of when speed and it blue are up. But again, like you're rotating over to these blue, but Flipsy has already said, hey, that's my soul lanes farm, and rotated out, and he's doing things in mid and getting neutral farm and starting fights on your mid laner. So it's definitely something to consider, where maybe you can do a similar thing where this is actually, I think, the game, yeah, that Drams got a solo kill on his lane opponent. So when you rotate over to the solo side of the map, that it's either to secure blue because it's being invaded, to steal their blue, or your lane opponent isn't kind of healthy enough to secure their own, or not your lane opponent, your solo laner. So right here, you clear red. The call should be that Ra's not in the fight right now, but right here, the twos are kind of being used at an awkward time. You're like using it to catch up to people, but that's not like the best use of it. Like right now, your ult, I guess, just got up. But yeah, we'll go back and give that a better look. I actually think that your ult might have been down still. So that was definitely why that was kind of an awkward fight. So right here, you're kind of looking for the fight, but you don't really have ult, so you have to be aware that you're fighting a little bit weak. Your Ra's completely forced out. Pyro dies immediately, and you missed that. So like right there, the fact that you use the 2 there means that you can't use it against Jingchen here. Like, you tried to catch up to him, but I think you missed the damage and you didn't really get too far onto him. You get that, and luckily Prizzy's there, and he's on point with his 1, or else that wouldn't hit. And then right here, like, you just kind of get gone on. And like, that's a situation where you may have wanted your 2. If you had your 2 in that situation, like, you probably don't die and you're able to continue that fight a little bit more. I just think that you're using your 2 a little bit too early. Generally, you're either saving it until the very end of a kill, or at least the way that I usually see it played is you save it till the very end of the kill to catch up for like that last auto for that gets the kill, or you're saving it for a really impactful time, like right there, where he rooted you and knocked you up and then hit you with a couple autos and you couldn't do anything about it. Whereas if you had your 2, the second he rooted you, you like 2 away, you create some distance, and you're able to sort of outplay a little bit more than you were there. That being said, Flipsy is a solid player, and it's going to be harder to outplay him than other people would be. So back on the farm rotation. So the thing is, like, you're not really behind in farm, but again, you're sharing a lot with your solo laner in terms of the enemy jungle hasn't really been around for blue. And the thing is because he's not going for blue, that's why you're seeing all these fights in mid and seeing your mid lane die so much. Because he's actually saying, my blue's capable of getting his blue by himself, and that frees up his rotation ability. The thing is that the jungle is like a team responsibility. So if you're not farming it, somebody else needs to. If you can't take backs, sometimes the mid laner goes and takes backs. So that's why in this situation, like, it's actually Flipsy's able to get a lot more pressure in mid because you're opting to go to blue side and solo side and taking that farm. So that's a big thing, and kind of what I want to talk about in terms of jungle is applying pressure. So kind of what I was saying about, usually you're going to solo side to like take blue buff, you're taking like red, you're taking purple, you're there to like apply pressure and bring rotations to important objectives being up. So what Flipsy has been doing all game is he's been taking speed, taking red, and then sitting in the mid area and applying pressure in mid. And it's kind of been like, clearly from what we're seeing, like 0-4 and 2 support, 1-4 and 2 mid, 1-3 and 3 jungle, like he's doing a pretty good job of that. So it's like you have to be aware of what the other jungle is doing, and you have choices. In this game, if solo was your focus, or something that you wanted to do, look for invades onto blue. I don't think I saw you go a single time. You always cleared your own buffs, and you not once checked their blue, got the timer, figured out when you could invade it. Even just having a normal ward or a sentry ward and placing it on the buff so that you're aware of the timers and you get it for the next time. The other thing is that you're doing a pretty good job of farming the jungle, but the other thing is the applying pressure. Right now, we're being out pressured in mid a lot, and I think part of it's down to Fum's play. I feel like he should be playing farther back and playing safer, especially if he doesn't have the ward coverage, considering how heavy they've been focusing his lane and how far back they've been playing. But even then, at some point when they're applying consistent pressure like that, you need to either be consistently making a play somewhere else on the map, whether it be ganking duo, ganking solo, taking pyromancer. Like, you need to be making plays somewhere. And so if that somewhere is mid, then so be it. But if it's not, you need to be making that play somewhere else. But again, right here, they get another duo kill it in mid, and they just keep on putting on the pressure. They actually end up getting red here, which was up, and you kind of opted to go to back camps instead. So they do get the red invade off of that kill. And then right here, you can hear them, they're on pyromancer. And again, you kind of do like a blind ult over the wall. A little bit late. But sometimes things like that aren't worth it. Especially like if you don't have a ward. Putting a ward over the wall and then ulting is like a little bit safer of an option. But right here, just going on a blue biohazard, forcing out the ult. Good usage of the active, getting an ult for blink. But you do end up getting hit by that. Can't really chase you under tower, so I don't know why he decided to blink there, but that's kind of what he decided to do. But a big thing is right here, like, I feel like you have synergy with your mid in that if you hit a root and you communicate that you're going for the root, you can actually set up an ult from him or set up a 1. But so far it doesn't look like you've been really consistent with your 3s, and B, it doesn't seem like it was ever really communicated. Like, again, right there, you're a little bit off the mark. And right here, like, you're getting good pressure, but you have to back off because you aren't quite there. Like right there, like mechanically, as a jungler, especially like on Rav, like that can't happen because Rav is a very mechanical player in that if you miss even one of your abilities, it is probably going to affect whatever trade you're like. Losing 300 damage and losing the ability to follow up with autos is really going to hurt whoever you're diving and whatever kill you're trying to get. And I feel like that shows in the scoreline where you dropped a couple kills where, okay, you're supposed to eat 3, 3, and 3, but a couple of those scenarios were actually ones where you ended up dying because you were just off and then you got turned on. So it's like you could realistically be like 3, 1, and 3 here if you're just mechanically a little bit better, More consistent with your threes. And right here, like you're a little bit off. Maybe that wasn't communicated, but like you're not in position to follow up. You're missing the three. So that's definitely like you can see it where it starts to build up of not hitting your abilities. It is starting to hurt a little bit, and you can see it. Like right there, the 2. I feel like the 2 is like one of your most important cooldowns. Like if you happen to take a fight within the time that it's down, which is probably about like 12 seconds at this point with your CDR and the fact that you have a point into it, like that's 12 seconds where you don't have a CC immunity you otherwise would have. You have 2 others, but again, one of them's down and the other one just popped up. Like right there, 2 more missed abilities. Like you didn't put any damage into them and use cooldowns. You lost bubble. Like you just have to be like very considerate of hitting your abilities. And again, like maybe it's just not being comfortable with the Ravana, but it's kind of like in a game like this, it's very important. So that was actually a good 2. That was a very good use because it was off of the bond stun, and you were able to get off it. So this is kind of like awkward positioning a little bit, but you're able to get a lot of damage on him. Good, but turn around, like. Like it was kind of like you were staring at somebody that you didn't really have a chance of catching up to, and you actually had to use a blink to actually catch up to that kill. So it turned out well because you had blink up, but the fact that you weren't even looking at the target that was Neja ulted in front of your face is like it forced you to use an active that you otherwise wouldn't have had to use. So right here, like you guys drop it and you actually do secure it, and you're looking for the kill. I think I'm seeing a lot of too is that I'm seeing you like backpedal auto expecting people to like juke a certain way, and it's actually like putting you really out of position and unable to follow up in some of these scenarios. It's just something that I've been noticing after a few of these situations. And again, even with like the camps of ability canceling, like the same thing applies with sticking to people. So if you get like root, walk up to them, auto 1, the slow then guarantees the next couple autos, and then they like use their dash to escape, and then you ult onto them, auto, 2 onto them, auto. Like you're getting all of your abilities onto them, you're getting a lot of autos onto them that are guaranteed because of the fact that you're hitting abilities, and you're using all of your like cooldowns effectively to stick onto targets that don't really want you to stick onto them. Also of note is a lot of the times I see you kind of initiating onto the Xingqian. So yeah, because like really early on, like a lot of those 3s were getting fired at the Xingqian more so than onto the carries. You don't have your blink yet, but that's just kind of like is a fight something that you want to take if you don't have blink all of the time. Also, again, miss 3. Now you're like looking for a dive that's not there. You're really lucky that the mid laner decided to beads there. But like right here, like you're taking a lot of damage, and this was the fight where you take a lot of damage and you're really low, and it's like this fight, like you get picked out and you die. So if we kind of take a closer look at that, take this back. But a lot of that was like you were standing in front of Agni, and he was under tower. Like for all intents and purposes, like he was pretty safe. You missed your 3 on him, which means that you didn't really have a chance to get onto him. And you kind of just like let him do whatever. You have blink coming up here, but like you didn't use that ult for chase. You used it to get onto him in the first place. Like you have a blink, use it. That's what's really, really good about Ravana into Agni is if you have blink, you can blink root, hit him, force him to dash, and then ult onto his back. At that point, he can stun you out. But remember, you have bubble, you have beads, and at that point, you not only hit root and ult onto him, you have your 1 up, you have your 2 up, you have all of your actives up, you have bubble up, and now you're on top of him. As it was, you had to ult just to get onto him to begin with when you had beads up. Or not up, but they were coming up. So it's like you have to be aware of those timings of if you started that fight 5 seconds later and you initiated with the blink, That was a much better scenario for you. You kind of forced a fight before you had the cooldowns to allow you to take the fight. And you kind of are just hitting the W key without consideration for where your team is, what cooldowns you have up, what cooldowns they have up, and mechanically you're missing too many 3s and too many 1s to really provide as much of an impact as you really should on this Ravana pick. And like right here, like you're not getting that. You take a tower shot, you take a flame wave, you take an ult, and now you're so low. They just had to use a shell on you, and he comes in here and ults you, and you're dead. Like you're too far from your team, looking for a kill that's not there, and missing abilities on the way. Like that's going to hurt a lot from the jungle position and in a team fight scenario. Not to say that like your build's decent in general in a scenario like this, like into their jungler. I would consider something like a Void Shield third item. It's going to give you more damage, it's going to give you tankiness, and it's going to lower the solo potential that Flipsy would have into you, which definitely helps a lot. And then usually like fourth item you'll see like a Magi's, but your build's probably fine. Also, who am I watching? Why am I here? Okay. Okay. I see what I was doing. Right here, back off of spawn. So the thing is, like, again, your farm's not really too far off. You're pretty much up there with Flipsy. You're relevant enough with the rest of the team that you're still doing damage. You have the points into your abilities such that you're doing damage. You have the tankiness to still compete in these fights and trade well. I also like the sentry, turning the sentry off. But it's like right here, it's like, this is kind of a little bit confusing of, you didn't really do anything with that rotation. I feel like there's some things happening in mid, backs are up, and you kind of just like wander around a little backed again. You did grab wards, which was probably the point of that back, which isn't like the worst decision. You just have to also consider that if people aren't in position, like right here, I would be saying, okay, the other team's looking for a pick. They're looking to get onto us, start a fight, and fight over Fire Giant. So getting wards is good for that, but if too many people back at the same time, and if you aren't considerate of that fact, like somebody could get caught out and picked, and that could just mean like free Fire Giant. So you have to kind of weigh those considerations of wanting to have ward coverage and vision, but also not rotating too many people out such that somebody gets picked and they get the objective for free. So right here, kind of a fight's happening, and you're over the wall looking for the blink, which is good. Blink! Blink! Blink, blink, blink. You have blink, use it. Your ult should be used to chase people. Once their dashes is down, when they used their ult, then you ult onto them. That's how you close the distance. When you're ulting over the wall to start the fight, you're getting the damage immediately, but you're missing the chase potential that you would otherwise have. If they're doing damage to you, you can't get onto them. And again, like this fight goes pretty bad. You went pretty hard onto their ADC, and that fight Agni was able to just free cast, which was again like the point of what we were doing was we didn't want Agni to free cast. Agni was getting a lot off of being able to free cast, and kind of the point of the Rav pick was to have a character that could actually get onto him and be the one to punish him for trying to free cast, get in on him. So you just have to be aware of that. Is like the point of the Rav pick was to try to get onto this Agni. The Agni was actually like in the middle of the fight half the time, and he was still able to free cast. Like nobody went onto him. So that's just something to consider. Also, you have a lot of damage, but not a lot of tankiness. It's just something they have to be aware of. But I definitely think the biggest things that I'm noticing is there's definitely on Ravana, there's been some mechanical mistakes in terms of not being able to hit your 3. And I think a lot of it comes from you're trying to hit these max range 3s and these 3s that are outside of your range, which is a mechanical mistake, but you don't need to even be attempting that when you have blink up. Like, the entire point is that you can blink onto somebody and put them right in front of you. You can use your gap closers effectively, and that will help you when you're getting onto these targets and looking to kill them and using your cooldowns. But on to the next fight. So right here, like, you have the blink. This isn't the worst position, but you just have to consider the fact that you're not really doing a ton. This back here, I think they actually spotted you on that ward, which is why they went to try to chase you. Right here, it looks like you're buying items. Running into a wall. Yeah, so right there, again, missed 3. Missed 1. Like, you have to be a little bit better about hitting your abilities on this character to really bring it out. And again, like, you were trying to pop the bubble, but you not only didn't pop his bubble, you got your own bubble popped. You also kind of walked into 4 people. Against good teams, you walk into 4 people and 4 people kill you. Like, it's not something you can do. Like, you can kind of get away with a little bit because you have bubble, because you have beads, because you have a little bit of tankiness, not a ton. But right here, they just backed. This means push things up. Look for what camps are up and farm them. This is like a very important stage where when they back, you have to push out. You have to get as much farm as possible. You're still looking to, like, finish a mantle or a spirit robe. You're still looking at like 4 items when across the board the enemy jungler has 6 items. Right now, red's up, purple's up, left lane hasn't really been pushed out a ton. Like, everybody's kind of grouped up, but nobody's really doing enough to push the waves out and get as much farm before you have to back. So like right here, I'm saying you don't have your next item. If I look at Golden Hand, actually not too close. Wondering if you maybe bought some stuff. So right here they back. You have 300 in hand, so I guess you are a little bit too far off. But still, like, these things are up. There's this wave to push, this wave to push. These things are up, there's this wave to push. And it's like some of it's getting farmed, but there's definitely a lot better could have been done in this scenario. Where it's like you got like a back camp and that was about it. Got about like 200 gold. So right here, you just heard they got Gold Fury. You're looking to clear these wards, which is honestly kind of risky and not worth it. They're actually kind of all rotating over to you because they spotted you clearing that ward. The thing is that, like, yeah, they're coming over. They want to pop your bubble, and they get it. So the thing is, like, it's nice to have vision, but vision is only nice if you actually plan on contesting it. And the thing is, like, when you clear it like that, they know you have a sentry. If they have a sentry, they're going to clear it before you even have a chance to be over in that area. Not to mention the fact that you know the timings, whether your ward is there or not. because of the giant fireball that comes down to represent the fact that fire giant's coming up. So if you just look at the sky, you can see way before it comes up whether they're going to be there or not. And again, like right here, you don't have any vision, and you're kind of just walking around. So if you have plans to contest, like, you should have 5 people here. The fact that there's only 1 person here means that you don't want to contest. You're just looking for like a sacrifice steal, which you didn't end up actually going for. So it's like, the thing is, like, being that far out without any ward coverage is asking to like get rotated on and get killed. So right here, they're going to be pushing. So you either need to be backed or you need to be taking buffs. Like, you need to be doing something. As of right now, like, you didn't farm anything, you didn't take anything, you didn't do anything, and now you had to back anyway. So it's like kind of making more efficient use of your time and not just kind of wandering and doing nothing. When you're in jungle, when you're farming late game, you should always have an idea of where you're going next. Even if that where you're going next is literally just sitting on a Phoenix line. Like, you need to know what you need to be doing at every stage of the game and be ready to do it as it's happening. Like right here, you're kind of clearing out mid, but they're grouped as 5 on right. Like, they're already like throwing bomb downs done, and you were like still finishing up a wave. Right here, good, but again, like missed the 3. Like, there's kind of a thing here. He does that. Good job. You immune that. Ulted there. Good job. But again, like, if you're actually hitting your 3s, maybe that goes a little bit better. Right there, you had beads up. When you have beads up and you're stunned and you're getting a lot of damage onto you, you need to use it. Like, there's definitely like good plays being made, and you're generally like in the right spots and farming the right things, but there's definitely a lot of room for being a little bit better. And I feel like, especially on the Rav pick, that mechanically, like, being able to hit your 3s and 1s is something that felt like it was missing during a lot of these fights. When you actually hit your stuff, you saw like during that last fight, even though you missed the 3, when you hit most of your stuff, like, you got kills, you forced people out, but it's just like that little bit extra that definitely could bring your play to the next level. But no, like, I just think that you kind of need to work on, the big thing seem to be knowing when blink is up, and making sure to use it to get onto people. Remember, you have a certain amount of gap closers. You can only use blink as a gap closer when you're not in combat, which usually means you're going to want to use it at the beginning of the fight because you haven't been hit yet. Also, be aware of your cooldowns. Some fights you didn't have your ult. Sometimes you kind of threw your 3, missed it, and you decided to continue fighting anyway. Even though there wasn't a fight didn't have to be taken during some of the fights that you did take. As soon as you miss your 3, you can walk away. You can sit under tower. Just like some things to consider. And again, like, at the end of the day, like, you want to be hitting those 3s and following out up with the right amount of autos and forcing their mobility out so that you can follow it up with your mobility. And just comboing it in the right order to sort of make effective use of your kit and counter what they're trying to do with their kit. A big thing is kind of your pick was to be a counter to the Agni, and there are definitely times where you misuse your 2, and there's a lot of times where you misuse your blink ultimate, and because of that you weren't able to effectively counter the Agni as much as your character probably should have, given that your kit is very, very good into Agni.